For me, whenever a new Legend of Zelda game rolls around, it's like Christmas morning every single time. Hi everyone, and welcome back to RetroView, the show where we deep dive into some of the best and worst retro games out in the universe. And today, I wore my Baby Yoda sweater because he's green, like Link's tunic and hat. The connections are unreal. In 1986, The Legend of Zelda came out for the Famicom system in Japan, known as the Hyrule Fantasy, The Legend of Zelda, and later on in 1987 for the American continent with just the title of The Legend of Zelda, the one we all know today. The Legend of Zelda was created by Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka, and later on, Eiji Aonuma would also join the team to create some of Zelda's other greatest titles. And again, more on that later of course. The inspiration for The Legend of Zelda came from Shigeru Miyamoto's childhood years exploring the countrysides and caves near his home, melding The Legend of Zelda into one fun adventure series primarily focused on the exploration and discoveries in the land of Hyrule.
Long ago, Ganon, Prince of Darkness, stole the Triforce of Power. Princess Zelda of Hyrule broke the Triforce of Wisdom into 8 pieces and hid them from Ganon before she was kidnapped by Ganon's minions. Link, you must find the pieces and save Zelda.
This was the very first premise to the Legend of Zelda franchise, clean and simple. Just like the last installment of RetroView, the very first Legend of Zelda had a pretty simple and easy story to follow along with. It wasn't until one of the biggest N64 games / Zelda games / best games of all time, where the Legend of Zelda franchise was thrusted into one of the biggest video game timeline splits of all time. And with the classic line,
"It's dangerous to go alone. Take this."
It's finally time to head out into the land of Hyrule and save the princess from the evil pig, man, thing. The Legend of Zelda is an exploration-based game where it takes the player across the fields, caves, mountains, waters, and dungeons of Hyrule. The thing that was truly special about the first Zelda was the secrets around Hyrule that the player would have to figure out for themselves. Especially when the game was first released, the internet wasn't a thing, leaving the player to use their own imagination and smarts to figure out the secrets and different ways around Hyrule. There's even a handful of dungeons that are hidden away by secret entrances. Other than the secrets, the game has a ton of classic items to use like the boomerang, bombs, the bow and arrow, heart containers, rupees, tunics, and 3 different types of swords, ranging from the sword, white sword, and magical sword. Most of the items used in the original game would be brought over into titles to come, and some would get new upgrades and variants, like the Master Sword. The best part of The Legend of Zelda on the NES was the freedom to challenge any dungeon in any order. Except for me, this game is so hard. This would become a staple in other notable Zelda games because of how fun it is to play the game your own way. One last side note would be the inclusion of a whole new game once the game was beaten for the first time, changing the spot of certain items and dungeons, adding a whole new difficulty to the game. This would be called the Second Quest. The original Legend of Zelda soundtrack was composed by Koji Kondo, and due to hardware limitations, it consisted of only 12 tracks. 6 of the 12 only being 3-second sound bites and not full-length tracks. The soundtrack is definitely not one of my favorites, but all the songs would later be expanded into full-length tracks in future installments. Although the soundtrack is pretty small, here are some notable tunes to check out. The title theme, the overworld theme, receive an item, and the dungeon theme. Overall, I do enjoy the tracks from the original Legend of Zelda, but the tracks that came from the later titles get even better with modern technology. But we have to remember that they wouldn't have been possible without the OG game. Really, the only significant characters from the original Legend of Zelda would be Link, Zelda, Ganon, and the Old Man. Other notable characters would be the Octoroks, Moblins, Lynels, Keese, and the Zoras. All these characters would continue to appear in later installments of the Legend of Zelda franchise. The Legend of Zelda franchise has always been a favorite of mine, even though the original game isn't in my immediate top 5. The first installment set the stage for what would come in the future for the franchise, and laid the ground rules for this epic series. That's why I retro-liked it. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into The Legend of Zelda and the second episode of RetroView. If you would like to know all the RetroView rankings, check out the short in the description down below. If you did enjoy this video, hit that subscribe button and notification bell to never miss a video or live stream. Smash that like button and share this video around, and I will see you in the next one.